What does that mean? Are you telling me that the government is going to take over farming? Would the government taking over farms produce more and better crops? Because I'm starting with something obvious. You know and I know that that was tried in the Soviet Union in the 1930s, where they started to debase the Soviet farmers, the Russian farmers. They called them kulaks. Very much like Obama has started to come up with a phrase called white privilege in order to attack white people. The universities have been putting out this racist garbage for a few years now. And so they started by demonizing the farmers in the Soviet Union, calling them kulaks, meaning profiteers in essence. And what happened soon thereafter was the people started to say, yeah, those damn farmers, they're making too much money. Now remember, the Soviet Union was the breadbasket of the entire region for a long period of time. They were producing wheat. They were self-sufficient. They were able to feed themselves and export many products, including wheat, around the world. Once the government took over the farms, the government, in its typical fashion of mismanagement, mismanaged the farms. Crop production fell, food production fell, food distribution fell. There was mass starvation and 30 million people died. This is what happens whenever a government takes over a private industry. It cannot do it better. It does it worse. Do you understand this? Do you understand how this works? Now, many of the bums listening to this show don't work for a living, but they hate those of us who do work for a living. They're green with envy. They're green with envy because they think that we stole it from them. They think that they're on the bottom because we took it from them. They think that we on the top took it from them. Where did they get this foolish idea from? From Barack Obama and the media and the universities. The fact of the matter is, there are always winners and losers in every country, in every society, in every tribe, in every village. I've lived in primitive villages. And in the smallest villages that I've lived in the Fiji Islands, I've seen those who were chiefs. I've seen those who were princes and princesses in the familial line. And I've seen those at the very bottom. There's no equality on this earth, whether it be in the animal kingdom or in the human kingdom. There never has been and there never will be equality. Does this mean that we should let those on the bottom starve to death? Can you tell me of anyone who is starving to death in America? We have an obesity epidemic amongst the poor in this country. No, we should take care of the poor. We should take care of the weak. We should take care of the sick. However, we shouldn't take care of the world's poor, the world's sick, and the world's weak. We can't hardly take care of our own domestic variety of parasite. So let's be clear. When I was a child, and I would drive around in my father's car on the way to work, I would look at everything and observe as a smart child does, whatever the race or religion of a child will observe. And I used to hate working. I hated going to work. I resented it like you can't believe. I didn't like working. I wanted to stay home and play with my friends. My father was an immigrant, and he wanted to teach me the work ethic. So he made me go to work on the weekends, and we drive in his old cars. Well, they were a couple of years old, over the Kosciuszko Bridge from Queens at that time, into Manhattan to his store on the Lower East Side on Ludlow Street. And I would observe human life as I went by, the tenements, the old apartments in the Williamsburg area, Greenpoint, which are now you pay $1 million for a junky apartment. But nevertheless, I would observe and I would say, wouldn't it be nice, I would imagine, if there was no money in the world? This is a child's view now. This is how socialists think. This is how college professors think. Wouldn't it be nice if there was no means of trade called money? And I said, what if the man went to work every day and my father just gave away his merchandise to people and exchanged it, I thought, let's say for food or for gasoline or for a car. I thought that would be nice. Nobody would have to work too hard. Everybody would just exchange goods. But then I said, wait a minute. What happens, I thought, if some guys don't want to work as hard as the other guy? Well, what if some guys don't want to work at all? And then I realized that I was not a socialist. Unfortunately, Bernie Sanders never had that moment. He never realized that there are some people who are lazy or cheats. And as a result of that, he doesn't understand the real world. So you have to ask yourself, why is socialism suddenly on the rise in America? Why are people interested in this? Left-wing politicians are in retreat across the entire Western world except in the United States. Did you know that? They're in retreat in France, Germany, Italy, England. They've gotten defeated in all of these nations. The left-wingers have been thrown out of office in most of the Western world. But in the United States, there seems to be an infatuation with socialism, as exemplified by this Lower East Side street agitator, Bernie Sanders, who seems to be running at 15% in the Democratic polls. He's riding higher than any U.S. socialist since Eugene Debs ran for the White House 100 years ago. Now, it's unlikely he'll unseat Hillary Clinton. She's got too much money. But he is dragging her to the left. I got an email from a man a couple of weeks ago. Remember an artist called the show, and I asked him to send me a picture of his pictures, and this pops up. And he goes on and on about radio, and he says, look, Michael, I have to say this, Dr. Savage. First about radio. As a boy, I built Heathkit radio receivers and kept my own radio at the head of my bed, overlooking the stand of blue spruce trees outside my window in Michigan. That little radio of mine had drift. It slowly moved its tuning focus down the bandwidth by itself, pulling in stations slowly, far away, through the night as it kept me company. Listen to this. It's beautiful. In those days, the radio shows were so unique and memorable. Arthur Godfrey, country evangelists, corn prices, late-night baseball doubleheaders under arc lamps, Tennessee Ernie Ford, hogbacks, prairie philosophers, the lot. It became the subliminal tapestry of sounds in the background of my youth. So I have a special affection for radio, and I listen to you, Dr. Savage, on the Drake S8 receiver or my little Grundig G5 portable, which is the portable shortwave receiver I always take to Europe. Your show is really like a radio Chautauqua, where you mix current events, recipes for meatballs, politics, sports, and art, and your own memories of times past, as Proust would say. I know that other radio hosts have criticized your format and your popularity, but this sense that you have, what Kipling calls the common touch, is so important to conveying your message. A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down, so to speak. Secondly, Dr. Savage, when you mentioned Lysenko, I almost spilled my coffee, because no one I know has mentioned him since I did my Russian studies years ago and understood what a dogmatic and ideological disaster the Soviet regime was. Then you mentioned Immanuel Velikovsky, and I actually did spill my coffee on the carpet. When you spoke last week about the rise of the Nazis, I had to call to relate how the Wilson Doctrine so harmed the peace after World War I because it created a formula for equating national self-determination with races, such that the liberals were quite unable to withstand Hitler's demand for reincorporating ethnic Germans from other nation states into a great Third Reich. This same liberal philosophy of using racial metrics to define communities or areas of separation are still a beloved tool of the liberal political class, much like the liberals and labor socialists in Churchill's time. In fact, there was a bit of a parlor game in England before World War I to try to draw a map on the tablecloth of how the dinner guests would reapportion the Balkans, and on and on. Lately, your motto, Michael Savage, Borders, Language, and Culture, has always appeared to me to be more than a conservative touchstone or shibboleth, although it certainly is that externally. But if one understands that same formula, as it were, internally, what an immense guiding light it becomes, because borders can be understood to be about personal borders, and filling those borders with the most positive content one can achieve, as well as setting oneself apart, not letting others unduly influence you or overrun your borders. Language is not just to speak American, but to speak our mother tongue, English, in the most correct and literate manner, to be well-read and gracious in delivery and debate. Finally, culture, to be personally cultured in both the local and international senses, to behave and live in a cultured manner, no matter what economic standard one obtains. These guidelines are as applicable to modern America as to Edwardian England or Cicero's Rome. Michael, borders, language, and culture are what makes us well-rounded, accomplished and social in the most correct and far-reaching manner, he writes. They are to live by. This is one man's email to me. I'll read the last paragraph. Thank you for sending me your latest Jack Hatfield novel, Countdown to Mecca. I have enjoyed the first two in your other works, most especially The Coming Civil War, are favorites of mine. If you like anything in my works below, I'll see if I get something of a like manner, blah, blah, blah. You see the kind of listeners I have? Why I love the show. I tell you the truth. It's my lifeline to my own sanity. I don't have people that I can really talk to other than outside of one or two in my life. I'm a loner at the end of the day. As well as I can communicate, and believe me, I'm a people person. I like people. At least I did when I was a boy. Maybe I'm imagining I like people. But if you put me in a social group, I'm actually quite sociable. I enjoy people. I get along with people and such, but I don't have a lot of people around me. But I have a lot of listeners. And amongst the listeners, there are people like this who really appreciate what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do, and how I do it, and what form it takes. That's all I want to say. That's all I'm saying. So to me, radio is my lifeline. You, my audience, are my life rafts. And I know it's the same for you. You not only hear me but you hear others call and make you feel sane in an insane world, right? And you no longer feel isolated the way Obama wants you to feel, like you're the wrong one. You're not. You're actually the majority of this country. I'll be right back.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
My Savage Nation is sponsored by SwissAmerica.com. It's the only company I trust to protect my wealth. Call 800-BUY-COIN.
Climate change is real. And it also happens to be the greatest business opportunity to come to our country for 100 years.
Oh, yeah. Nancy Pelosi knows
we
that.
We must create an American job.
Knock off O'Malley, please. Turn it off. Climate change is real, and it happens to be the greatest business opportunity. Well, he's telling you the truth about it being a business opportunity for him and his cronies. Many people have made fortunes on climate change without proving that it's real. And more particularly without proving that man is causing the climate change. Now, I'm all for pure air and clean waters and stuff. And I've worked at that for many years, decades as a matter of fact. But there is no consensus that man is causing climate change. None whatsoever. And also, those of you who are self-righteously driving battery-driven cars, I applaud your desire to drive a clean car. But behind that clean car, there's some really filthy energy that was used to make that battery that probably you don't know about. Or every time you recharge that clean little battery, where do you think the energy is coming from at the recharging station? Probably a coal-fired plant somewhere or a water-generated plant somewhere, but I guess that's causing you to think too much as you drive around in your snotty little car. But we're talking about socialism. It's going through a revival right now. It's a kind of knee-jerk response to things for the college-educated people who live at home and their mothers and can't get jobs and are on medication. They don't understand why no one will hire them. They're unemployable. That's why they're unemployable, is because they were steeped in anti-American socialism and there's no jobs for them. I mean, how many government jobs can there be? Another 75 million government jobs? I guess that would take care of their employment needs. Jerry Brown is moving as quickly as he can to create as many state jobs as he can for people who do nothing but stop those of us who do something from doing more for society. But why is socialism going through this popularity? Well, let's look at the other side of the ledger. On the other side of the ledger, we see men like Bill Gates in Microsoft not paying his fair share of taxes, in my opinion. On the other side of the ledger, we see men like Warren Buffett not at all paying his fair share of taxes while telling you to pay your fair share of taxes. Now, Warren Buffett has always said we're not paying enough taxes, while he himself derives dividend income and pays 15% on it. You probably pay 39% in federal tax on your income. Warren Buffett, a good friend of Obama, is also in favor of blocking the Keystone XL pipeline, which is why his stooge in the White House, the golfer, has continuously blocked the Keystone XL pipeline. The reason the stooge in the White House has blocked the Keystone XL pipeline is because guys like Warren Buffett transport the oil, the raw oil from the Alberta tar sands to our refineries on his railroad cars. And to transport the oil for refining to our refineries by pipeline would be much cheaper than by Warren Buffett's railroad cars, and it would put his enterprise, his railroad enterprise, in jeopardy. As a result, he's against the XL pipeline, and so the stooge in the White House vetoed the Keystone XL pipeline, even though the unions wanted the Keystone XL pipeline because it would have created many, many jobs for union members. So you look at the other side of the ledger and you see these greedy pigs disguised as very nice men getting away with virtual murder, not paying their fair share. You look at corporate structures, and most people who work for corporations are you and I. They're your neighbor. They're you. And you're paying your fair share of taxes. You have to. It's taken out of your paycheck. And yet there are people who are living at the corporate level who are not paying their fair share of taxes, getting around the tax law. Look at what came out about Google in Europe. Google paid something like a few $100 million on many, many billions of dollars of income because of the tricks they're using in their tax structures in Europe. Well, I hope to God the European Union takes them to the cleaners and takes from the Google boys what they deserve, which is a fair taxation. So, yes, there are problems with some of the very, very powerful and mainly those connected to the political structure, getting away with paying very little in taxes, and we see it. So that fuels this desire